Good morning, gorgeous divine being that you are. It is lovely to be with you today. Here inside, because it's just too breezy out to, be dealing with lots of rumble with the wind going past the phone. So we're inside, and as you know, there's no drawbacks. That means we do rocks, and rocks are good. So we have 3 rocks. It's interesting. I'm sure you're going to see the resonance between them. Hi, Misty. This is so-called bloodstone because it has little bits of red in it that you can see. But also, look, it's got yellow and it's got bits of white. Morning, Andrew. And yeah, there are the bits of red. The red isn't nearly as obvious as all the other fabulous colours. The base, the background of it is green. It may look blue. Depends how your camera renders it. But it's green, it's got this golden and little bits of white, and there's kind of red flowing through it, but like veins, but I don't know how well you can see that. What I love about this is that it's so smooth and shiny. It's just, I can cuddle up to this one. So there you go, bloodstone. And this is bismuth, right? And it is a manufactured crystal. Although I think they first occurred naturally, she says. Good morning, Julian. Inside petrochemical hoppers. So you take crude oil and you refine it, and you know how oil, when it gets mixed with water, you can see that it's iridescent, right? So who knows why that is? I'm no chemist, but these crystals would precipitate, that's a fancy word, on the inside of the refinery hoppers, and they pulled them out and started, selling them because they're pretty. But also now they get manufactured. I don't know which sort this is. I bought it some time ago, so maybe it's a quote-unquote natural one. But isn't it gorgeous that, you've got the colours and the shapes, and it's all beautiful and fractal. Let me get a bit closer. See if the camera can cope with that. Look at that. It's just these little steps. And this one, of course, reminds everybody of a pyramid. Oh, so much love to the work quadrant. So there you go. It's like steps up into a little city, little houses. There we are. And another one. See, they're all quite resonant, aren't they? They've all got these similar shapes. Look at this. This is black tourmaline, which I'm really fond of. It's very shiny, and it's got all these different facets and holes. Like that is a chunk out of it. It's the way it's grown. And you can see the termination there, and then the fact that it's broken. And then there's more of this glorious, shiny, reflective stuff and all these shapes. It's also a bit like a cityscape. And look, it's fractured. And then there's a termination. Catch the light with it. Where's the light? Can't do it to save myself. There you go. Finally see the shape on the end of it. So, there you are. So, there's black tourmaline, and these rocks, all 3 of them, they're kind of triangular, and they've got all these angular shapes, and they're just resonating today to share with us. So, yesterday, one of you made a comment about, gee, this is really useful information, and I know because I use it every day, and it really helps me. And I'm just at the beginning of a healing process in my own life. I've got this bad past, and I've made some kind of decision or started some kind of journey into healing it. Hi, Sunita, it's great to see you. And it's just really good to have this information about, and I can't even remember right now what we talked about yesterday, because yesterday is like about 3 days ago, because yesterday was amazing, and so much got pushed into it that it's like, I did a live yesterday morning. I know I did, but I can't remember what it was about. But I wanted to talk about this thing of, here you are embarking upon a healing journey. Maybe you've decided, oh my God, I've got all this trauma that I've been ignoring, and I've got to deal with it. And, or you've got sick, and you have this intuitive knowing that your body is expressing unprocessed emotional crap, whatever it is that's put you on that path. And you're kind of at the beginning of it. And you're looking around, and you're, thinking, well, how do I tackle this? And there is a lot of, talk, teaching, methods, modalities around healing which say, well, you need to look at the reason why you feel this way, and we need to go into the memory, and we need to change it and fix it. We need to we need to interface with the experience and alter it to make it better. And that's healing for some people. And there is nothing wrong with acknowledging what's happened to you. And I think that's really important because, denial gets you nowhere. You're just floating down a very long river with alligators, well, not with crocodiles, and if it's in flood, lots of logs. And that's not a very nice place to be, so stay out of denial. Actually, the Nile's a beautiful place in Egypt, but, denial is not a good place. So we have to acknowledge what's happening with us, right? Or what happened that perhaps you've ignored, or perhaps you even suppressed and didn't remember until suddenly somehow, you remember. And you think, oh, shit. So however it's happened, we have to acknowledge it. But what very easily happens for people, particularly when the experience is traumatic and very memorable, right? And even more so, if there's crime involved and you have to tell the story to investigators and doctors and God knows whatever, every time you tell the story, you bring up the associated emotions that come with it and you effectively put your body through the experience again. Because think about it. The experience that you had, whatever it was powerful enough to make your brain perk up and pay attention and gather information through all your sensory channels and say, oh, this is novel, this is new, better string this together as a memory. Works like this with good things too, right? But we're talking about the bad stuff at the moment. It makes neural connections and you get neurotransmitters which produce neuropeptides which talk to your hormonal centers, and you have emotions to match the thing that you're just thinking and experiencing. Hi, Jen! And that's how we remember things. I can't remember the mechanism, but the fact that we have this chemical response from a novel experience, whatever it is, actually helps us remember it well. And if, you're living in prehistoric times and you went to the watering hole and you discovered that there was an alligator that was always hanging out in a particular place, Tobias, lovely to see you. Well, then you need to remember the fact that was dangerous and you nearly lost your hand, right? So it is adaptive and it's useful. This is what happens. This is literally what happens in the brain. But the problem is that if you then have to keep telling the story of how awful it was that, I went to the hole and the crocodile nearly killed me, every time you do that, you strengthen those neural connections and you pour the chemistry into your body again. And, the day before that happened, you went to the watering hole, it was no big deal. The day after, you were terrified. Now, the crocodile was probably always there, you just happened to meet it. And the next day, the crocodile probably isn't there again, but for you, it's always there. And you just, every time you go back to the watering hole, say, oh my God, there's a crocodile, it's going to kill me, and you're in fear, right? Okay, so this is what happens with traumatic memories. And to stick with the analogy, or stick with the metaphor, the story, that watering hole then becomes like every other watering hole. So, now you've gone to a neighbouring district to visit some friends who live in the next door cave, and their watering hole, unconscious, because it's a watering hole, looks just enough like the one where the other awful thing happened that it reminds you, and then you play it again. And then you go back to see your family and where you live, and you say, that other watering hole was really scary, So this is what happens. And the whole thing of talk therapy, whatever form it takes, and I am not beating up on people who do talk therapy because there's value in it. People need space just to be safe with their emotions, to lose the plot after not having had the space or safety to do it for however long. But when it becomes this thing where you reiterate it and go over it and over it and over it again and analyze it to death and try to feel better about it by looking at it and logically thinking, well, this meant that and this meant that, and so I shouldn't feel that way anymore, or I don't need to feel that way anymore, but shit, I still do. It's going round in circles. All you're doing is firing and wiring the same circuitry and the same emotion, playing a record way too much. You're totally right, Misty. That's a great metaphor, a great analogy for it. And it just makes it worse. Now you've got an earworm, Anyone who gets earworms, you hear this song. It might be a song you love or it might be a song you absolutely hate, but now it goes round and round and round in your head for 3 days. Speaking from experience. The circuit just starts to loop, right? So that is why any kind of healing process, speaking as somebody who is interested in creating transformation and creating change and transformation and human empowerment, all that stuff, I am not interested in analysing the problem. I'm interested in the solution for the very sound neuroscientific reasons as mentioned above, right? You just keep playing the record, and you make it stronger and you make it louder. Neurologically, chemically, epigenetically, physiologically, in every way, you become more conditioned to living in that memory. So if you want to move out of it, what you really have to do is overcome the emotion in the memory. The story does not matter. Now, how can I say that? Well, there's relatively recent research, and I'm quoting my inspiration, Dr. Joe Dispenza, because I've heard him say it, and I believe him, because he doesn't talk porkies. Porkies, flying pigs, he doesn't tell lies. There's some relatively recent research which shows that with long-term memories, not short ones, but long-term memories, how much of our long-term memories do you think is actually true? Turns out, about 50%. We make the rest of it up over time. Now, why is that? Because 20 years ago, when you had that traumatic experience, your brain was one way. And then now, 20 years later, you've learned some things. You've had different experiences. You've been to different watering holes and gone, oh my God, there's a lion there. And you go back to the other one and say, oh my God, now there's a lion at that one too. The brain changes. Every experience we have, everything we learn changes the brain. You don't have the same brain that you had when that first traumatic thing happened. You are not the same you. You're not. And we make it up. We actually embellish it. It gets worse. Because we enrich the neural network through more experience. Just like going from one watering hole to the other one. Now there's a lion and suddenly there's a lion as well as a crocodile at the first one. Is what happens. So whatever you think happened, whatever you remember happened, if it was a long time ago, be sure that it's not what actually happened. I'm not saying that it wasn't awful, traumatic, difficult, scary, the whole 99 yards. I'm not saying that at all. But the memory, whatever it is now completely a construct in your mind. One more illustration of this. I had an utterly transcendent experience a few years ago. It was amazing. And for 3 days, I reveled in it. Short-term memories live in the hippocampus. And over 3 days, they get consolidated into long-term memory, right? None of this happens instantly. The reaction happens instantly, but how we lay it down and how it's organised, was amazing. And at 3 days, I felt it change. And I thought, oh shit, it's not the same. It was so beautiful. I don't want this to change. I don't ever want this memory to... It changed. And you know why? I think, this is my theory, I don't know. I think it changed because going into my memory, my long-term memories, it then got inserted into my neural nets and all my other stuff started to interact with it. It changed. I felt the quality of it changed. It was like, oh. But anyway, and now, of course, it's completely different. It's distant because it wasn't traumatic. So overcoming the past. It is the emotion that keeps you stuck in the past. It is not the story. It is the emotion. So overcome the emotion. So overcome the emotion of fear. Overcome the emotion of depression or sadness or shame or guilt or, whatever it is. Overcome the emotion. Because remember, the emotion means that something in your brain, by pattern recognition, by association, the brain has said there's something in my environment that I have decided is terrifying. And you're not doing this consciously. It's just a program. It's just a program. We've talked about programs and how they work automatically other days, and maybe I'll do that on Monday. Who knows? How do you unpack that? Anyway, there's a way, but I don't know if I can do it. So The program is running. The brain by association says this environment is threatening. Now I'm going to feel really, really afraid. And it just does it without you. Who cares why it says, oh, that thing reminds me of something? Who gives a flying wet slap? Really, why? What matters is your brain recognized something in the environment and said, we're going to feel scared now. Overcome the emotion. What happens when you overcome the emotion is that the memory loses its charge. Another example, and I'll try and talk about how to do this. But another example, when I was 19, I was in a relationship with a young man who must have been in a real mess. There were some things that he did that I allowed him to do to me that were reprehensible. And for however long it was, and I don't know how long it was, thank God I don't remember, I wanted him to die painfully. I hated him. I hated on him. I gave him so much love in the form of hate. I gave him so much attention. I fired and wired hatred towards that young chap. And I don't know when it was, sometime last year or this year, in a meditation, of course in a meditation, I just got this download of energy, a release of energy from my body. I released the trauma, the stuck energy, the stuck emotional energy that I had piled into my body by staying in that hatred for 20, 30 years, however long it was. That energy released from my body. And at that time, I just, the hatred disappeared, gone. And I can remember his face, I can remember what happened. I actually looked him up on Facebook, not to say hello, but just to see who he's become. Looks like he's turned into a nice enough guy, good for him. And I thought, well, all I really want is for you to have peace now. Because if you did that to me then, you were not a happy person. That's all I feel about it. The charge is gone. That memory has become wisdom. When you have a memory and the charge is gone, it becomes wisdom. I now understand this. I now get it, you know. So it doesn't really matter why you feel the feeling. Whatever I was remembering 30 years later was not what happened. I know what happened. But, you know, I embellished it and I built it and I enriched it and and the energy released from my body because I was deep enough in meditation that I could let it go. Because when we stuff all this emotional energy into our bodies, it's chemistry, right? Emotion is chemistry. The chemistry gets stuck in your body as energy and tissues. It makes pain, it makes autoimmunity, it makes disease. When you release it, all of that goes away and the emotional charge is gone. It goes back up to your brain. You have an amazing experience. You feel incredible for however long that lasts. And then it's like, okay, I'm free now. So you got to overcome the emotion. So for me, long term, overcoming my deeply entrenched lack mentality. Yeah, and I mean, this would be like for you, Shafi, you know, with paranoia, feeling like the world is just out to get you. I had some degree of that, but not that I would call it paranoia. It's just, you know, life doesn't like me. Nobody is there to support me. None of, you know, it's all me against everything. It means separation, right? I'm here, everything is out there, and it's going to get me if it can. Was not too far from how I felt, really. There was quite a lot of that going on, but not to the degree of you know, disabling paranoia. So feeling it for you. I had to think, well, you know, and it's like climbing a mountain. It was, because it was so entrenched and it was so who I was. It was my identity. And I had to recognise that this is not my identity. This is not actually who I am. Now I understand this is all the wiring in my brain and how long I've allowed myself to continue to fire and wire the same experience. So this must mean that I have to fire and wire something else. And it feels like pushing shit uphill to start not just telling yourself, for example, I am safe, or the universe works in my favour, or the world is a benevolent place, you know, whatever it, because if you just tell that to yourself, you can say it to yourself till you're blue in the face, and you know perfectly well, because I bet you've done it, Shafi. I bet you've done affirmations, and you've said, I'm safe, you know, whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, because of course your body is saying, are you kidding? Your brain can say what it likes. Your brain, your conscious awareness, 5% of you. Your body, your subconscious, your unconscious mind. You programmed it. So you can't change all of that by saying with your 5% of your conscious and awareness, oh, I'm safe, life is wonderful. You got to change the body. Now, to do that, you have to reprogram the feelings, and that's when it starts to feel like you're pushing shit uphill, because you are trying to generate a feeling of safety when everything in your body says, there is a tiger outside that door. There is an aeroplane that's going to fall out of the sky and hit me on the head. I can't go out of my door. It's not safe. I'm going to breathe something in that'll kill me. Whatever. Your whole body is in vigilance and saying we're in danger. And you're saying, no, I have let you be the mind of fear for 25 years. Now, even though it feels impossible, even though you're screaming at me and telling me it's not safe, and and the body will kick up a storm. I spoke about this earlier this week. You're saying, I am the mind now. I am the freaking mind, and I'm saying for this moment only, because maybe that's all you can do, I'm going to experiment, I'm going to take a risk, I'm going to imagine that I feel safe. And I remember doing this about money. It was like it was defiant. It's like, no, I'm going to say that I have enough. I'm going to say that I feel abundant when I don't. But the point was that I knew I had to change how I felt. Forget changing your thinking. You can do all the thinking you like and it will never get past your brainstem. The body and the mind have to be in agreement. And when you get them lined up and you release the emotional charge, however you do it, by not focusing on the story but focusing on how you do want to feel and insisting that you practice feeling that way even when it feels totally unnatural, totally wrong. Because your body is saying, no, I don't want to change. I've been doing this forever long. Thank you very much. Like, no, body, you sit down and be like a dog that stay. Now, we're going to have a different experience, even if it's only for 60 seconds. And I'm looking at the clock thinking, oh, God, this is so bad. Feels awful. Doesn't matter. You choose what you're going to feel. And it gets easier with practice. So that's what I wanted to say. Forget the story. Overcome the emotion. And if you're wondering how to do that, there's some really good information about that earlier this week. Big love. It's Friday. Look out for resonant replays over the weekend, and I will see you with bells on Sunday, Monday. Bye-bye.